Part 57. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 566. There was no light or sound in the cave. The smoke of Bailey walking in it, step by step, it was clear that the footsteps were very light, but only the echo of his own footsteps was around. The sound hit his chest, making his heart beat faster, as if without his consciousness, only mechanically, step by step forward. He walked for a long, long time. Adapted to the darkness in the tomb, the coffin in front was looming in front of him. His pace was getting slower. He stared at the coffin, squinting in front of him, and he saw that she sat up from the inside, stretched her waist and climbed on the edge of the coffin with a smile and shouted at him, "I smoke, but I just slept, how do you grow old? Is that so?" She was wearing that big red wedding dress, and she raised her tassels to look at him in one hand. Her voice was soft, and her heart seemed to be soaked in water, but she had the urge to cry. He stretched out his hand, subconsciously wanted to hug her, and wanted to respond with a smile, but he didn't have time to respond with his mouth open, and then blinked. His eyes were empty, except for the coffin. Without her smile, without her figure, she sounded like she was still in her ears. Tears flowed from his eyes, but she wasn't in front of her. Nothing at all. He opened his mouth and whispered, "Hong Yan." The trembling fingertips bounced several times before the lamps in the tomb lit up. He was only a few steps away from the tomb. But he stood still, but didn't dare to move forward. "Hanjian," he murmured, his voice almost begging, "I'm here for you. You have been in retreat for so long, have you been okay? Wu Tianyi is dead," urged the soul, "have you been stripped?" Hanjian. He had thousands of words, and he repeatedly spoken in his mouth, leaving only the word Hanjian. He finally reached the front of the coffin. He remembered that day when he hugged her in, she pulled around the coffin with a smile and asked him, "Do you want to come here once?" His eyes were silky and his voice seemed to be ecstatic, but the obsessive he listened to just said, "The day you wake up, I will celebrate with you here." He originally wanted to use this kind of thing to motivate her to break through the barrier. He remembered, at that time she didn't respond, only a pair of Wuliang eyes looked at him and said, "You smoke, you look so good." He used to be on the battlefield, and the thing he hated most was his face, so he would wear a mask whenever he went to battle. However, after hearing what she said, his heart was so beautiful that he suddenly felt that his face was really good. At least, she can keep thinking about it. He put his hands on the lid of the coffin and slowly pushed it aside. The lid of the coffin was heavy, and he stood outside for 3 days in the freezing cold, without much energy on his hands. However, there is still a tone. As long as there is a tone, as long as his Hanjian is still in the coffin, he can push away. As the lid of the coffin slowly opened, the people inside gradually appeared in his eyes. Think of it, countless times, countless times, countless days and nights of heart and heart to meet her again. Even fearing that she would abandon her face when she woke up, he insisted on applying his face day after day and insisting on exercising so that the gap between him and her would not be widened. Even if there is despair sometimes, every time he looks at the hidden door outside the grave, his despair becomes motivation again. Be sure to wait for her to come out. He told himself that if she came out one day and didn't see him, how sad she felt. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 567. Anyway, he has to be good and wait for her to show up. But he didn't wait for her. The big red wedding dress in the coffin was still bright, but the man who could wear it became a dead bone. He froze, staring at the dead bones in the coffin without blinking. The picture of holding her in the coffin seemed to be yesterday. Yesterday, she asked with a smile, if he wanted to come with her once in the coffin. But now there is only one dead bone in the coffin. He stared into the coffin with a pair of eyes. He felt that he was dazzled. He imagined that she would return to the next moment, and smiled at him again and again. He fancied that her eyes were silky, and he squeezed his hand on his chin to compliment him. "Your smoke is really good looking. For you, I have persisted till now." But until tears burst into her dry eyes, she still couldn't sit up again. He fell to the ground, watching the dead bones in the coffin, and suddenly crawled on the edge of the coffin and wept. Like a child who is ignorant and fearless, crying without fear and tearing his heart. He should have known that zombie cultivation was drought in the end. All the zombies did not dare to make any changes in front of her and let her be slaughtered. Because she is not only high, but also high-level zombies, those zombies will tremble when they see her, and it is normal for them to resist. As soon as the drought broke out, there would be more zombies and more natural disasters. She must know that those zombies and natural disasters are her own, so she told him to retreat. On that dog food day, the rain was pouring, not because of a big demon who appeared, but because of her death. These things are so clear that he should have thought of them. When he cried to the end, he wiped away his tears, climbed into the coffin with a sigh of relief, and carefully hugged her. "Hong Yan, I'm sorry, I'll be with you so late." He pulled the lid of the coffin with the other hand. She glanced into the lid and froze slightly, and the handwriting she drew with her nails was still there. She wrote on it, "Smoking a cigarette, which I had lived in the first half of the year, was very unwilling when I died. I never thought that one day I could see the sunset in the desert, the rain in the south of the river, and the spring. All my wishes are fulfilled by you, no regrets in this life. I am lying here. I miss you the most. I do auntie know how sad you are when you see me. I do auntie want you to be sad. I see auntie comfort you any more. I think of you, but it's a pity, but it's dying to stare, smoking. I really hope that when you see me, you will be full of gray hair, that way, you do auntie have to be too sad. Dead Tong, we are actually very beautiful." He traced the words she wrote over and over with fingers, and tears flowed unknowingly. Closing the coffin board, he hugged her and closed his eyes. "Hong Yan, I'm not sad, I'll stay with you." A murmur, no more breath. He was frozen outside for 3 days and 3 nights, and Ben had only one last breath. He could see her in this breath and climb into that coffin. It was a miracle. The head of the Nandu faction entered the cave under the eyes of the public and never came out again, and gradually became a big unsolved mystery of the Nandu faction. As a result, the Nandu faction often comes up with young talents. The first thing is to try to open up the back hills to solve the mystery of the disappearance of the head. It wasn't until one day that Tiandao favored the young man to open the large array, led the people of the Nandu faction into the cave, passed 5 levels and cut the ground, and finally went to the tomb room and opened the old coffin board. I saw a pair of bones embracing inside. An elder person argued that the man was wearing the red coat that he was wearing when he disappeared that day. In the arms of the head, it must be his wife who has disappeared for many years. Everyone thought that his wife had left the house and left the head. It turned out to be dead. After a few weeks of respectful worship, they all withdrew from the cemetery and set up a stele for the head and his wife outside the tomb. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 568. When Yanj returned to the space of fans, he didn't get into the task immediately. She was sitting with the chickens, watching the 9 tails of the ladies' big brothers while watching the seeds of the ladies with a sense of enthusiasm, leaving Wu Tian fascinated, even from the palace for the 9 tails. Even if Zhu Wei cut off Wu Tianyi's hands and feet later, Wu Tianyi couldn't hate him. What he kept thinking about was leaving his Zhu Wei. This is the first time that Yanj found out that the beauty is so terrible. It turns out that men are arrogant and have nothing to do with women. The nine-tailed lady is really charming, and that smile is really more tempting than a woman. She and the chicks opened the door to a new world. The chicken shook his head and sighed, "Would, I suddenly feel that this geeky system is really a bit of a mess for you, and it is the nine-tailed bird/beast that is best suited to be the owner of the geeky system." Words of song. Although very unconvinced, she even felt that the fan system was really a bit messy for her. After all of her hosts are all fans of the country. She has never used the beauty of the hosts to make the most of her time, but has taken the wrong path to rely on her own ability. Really, when I think about it, I feel remorse. The next plane, she must take good care of the host's beauty, take good shortcuts and not go astray. She also hates herself. After seeing the powerful person in the coffin, Yanj was silent for a moment, and asked the chicken with a snot and tears, "This guy, is it black again?" The chicken hadn't turned back from sorrow, sobbing, and said, "If it's me, it's going to be blackened. It's abnormal if he doesn't blacken it." Words of song. Immediately, the chicken responded that there was a problem with his standing team. He rolled his eyes and said angrily, "Do you still need to ask this? It's strange not to be blackened. I told you that you don't die before the powerful one. This guy is mentally weak and can't stand the stimulation." The words fell again with a snot and a tear, "My careful liver can't bear it anymore. Oh, don't let him blacken, and go on like this. I haven't been destroyed by heaven, he's already crying to death." After he finished speaking, he fluttered his wings and jumped up on the high feet, wiped his tears, and then spoke with the words to analyze why the mighty man was black. Words of song. This kind of analysis of the chickens, Yan Ji is completely out of mind. The mighty one was blackened, and after touching it for so long, she still couldn't figure it out. You can actually die this time. Zombies are immortal. It's the same when you wait for the mighty one to hang up and die again. Would, you say you do and have a heart. A lot of people do it. You do and have to do it in the future. There is no shortage of you, but the mighty one needs you. Yan Ji has been listening to the chicken, and she said, "Oh. She actually doesn't think she is really a virgin, but when this kind of thing comes back, she still has such a choice. Even if she is facing the mighty, it will be dark." In fact, the chick is right, she can't protect herself now, regardless of what can be done for those who can die. However, thinking is one thing, and when it is really faced, choice is another. She felt that it should be related to her entering the host's body and having the host's heart. Words of song. On this plane, there is nothing else that can be solved with beauty. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 569. In the chaotic space, the little sapling of Yanj sent a small green bud, which made her feel very relieved, and she turned the puppet's puppet into the ear completely. In the new plane, the host Su Mian is a very interesting little girl. Early love, early pregnancy, premature birth, and premature death all accounted for. The host had a deep grudge in her heart. She wanted revenge. She wanted to let the person who had lost her love, the one she loved, to die, but she would regret the sadness to die. Face her every day, but she won't get her. Combining the memory of the host and the current situation, Yan Ji was so fortunate. Fortunately, the time to enter the plane was good. So that she won't be too busy. After all, Su Mian's wish seemed simple, but the real operation was a bit complicated. Her hair was choked, and Yan Ji hadn't turned her head yet, and her hair was pulled again. Mian, I'm hungry." The people behind were not at all attentive when talking and kept pulling her hair. The song that hates being touched by people the most is now being dragged by the hair like this, and when she thinks about how many hairs are to be dragged off, her murderous power is about to dissipate. She gritted her teeth and said to the chicken, "Chicken, don't say that the thing behind me is the mighty one." The quivering chicken, who was shocked by Yan Ji's murderous words. If I said yes, what would you do? Without waiting for the song to speak, the chicken urged her bitterly, oh, would you take it easy, but it's just a few hairs that can grow out when it's gone. It's not a big deal. Do NT just because of such a small thing you can't control yourself. Yanj didn't speak, she would explode at any time now. The man beside him didn't notice the danger, and even pulled her hair vigorously. Mian, I'm hungry. Yanj was intolerable. A man turned over and pressed on the man, and he said nothing about grabbing the man's thing. She lay on him, looked down at him, and smiled lowly, hungry. Although King Grun's voice was a little bit cold, but because of the rising ending, it made the man's mind a little unspeakable. He suddenly remembered that he had been obsessed with playing games for the past few days. It seemed that he hadn't been with her for a long time. After a moment's wandering in the stomach and body, he decisively embraced Yanj's waist and said, sit down a bit more. The song didn't move, she smiled softly and tenderly, and the charming image in her eyes was able to scoop out the water, and her beautiful face was wandering between innocence and charm, just like the girl who was not a worldly girl overnight grow up and become a woman, but have not yet become a woman in the true sense, trying to help her pull into the swamp of earth dust, and put some water on her, so that she can be more charming. A man's throat is rolling, this is a teenager's blood, and there is a beauty in her arms. Today's beauty is like a reborn. It is generally different from the hold and mummy of the past. It is almost like being possessed by a fox. Can't stand it for a moment. When she didn't move, he reached out and helped her around his waist toward his waist. Mian. Yan Ji's hand swam from his abdomen to his chest, stretched out his hand, and drew a red from his chest. She slightly clinged to his chest, and raised her eyebrows at him after pecking. What should I do? The voice was clear and crisp, and she was simply innocent, and the man was completely unbearable by her. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 570. Young people do not know what is fun, they just want to vent their desires in their body. He couldn't hold her in his vent, and simply stood up, pressing the words directly under him. Yanj didn't struggle, she caught his neck and squinted at him slightly. Aren't you hungry? That's why I want to eat you. The man had buried himself and squeezed himself into the narrow lane. This man is the host's first love, called Fei Jiao. In fact, two people should not be considered first love, they are early love. The host Su Mian is a good student in the school, but Fei Jiao is a good student in the school. The life of two people should be two lines that never cross. But Fei Jiao likes Su Mian, a beautiful and fragile learning committee member. He did his best to chase Su Mian. He even directed and performed a hero to save the beauty. Although he is a student regardless of being a 3-year-old, the family of Fei is rich and powerful. Fei Jiao has a lot of fox friends and dog friends in the school, and wherever he goes, people will compliment his life, which is actually very novel to the good student. So after Fei Jiao's hero rescued the beauty, the host saw that Fei Jiao even hurt her. She was so moved that she finally agreed to Fei Jiao's contact. The little girl is ignorant, is at an age where she thinks she understands everything, but she doesn't understand anything. She thinks that this love relationship with Fei Jiao is a lifetime of love, and that two people are destined to be a pair. Under various offensives by Fei Jiao, she also gave it to Fei Jiao for the first time, even for the preference of Fei Jiao. Although she was reluctant many times, she still endured the dislike of her heart and cooperated with Fei Jiao. Many places experience what is called life fun. Because of this, the host's performance has been regressed from the first 10 grades to the middle of the grade in just 6 months. The entrance exam is about to begin. Teachers and parents must not let the host do the same, so talk to the host again and again. I learned that the host was in early love, and even used various methods to break up the host and Fei Jiao. However, in the period of rebellion such as the host, although she is ignorant, she still feels that true love is invincible. She and Fei Jiao are true love, and no one can break them up. So the more her family persecuted her to threaten her, the more she determined her true love with Fei Jiao. It was also at this time that Fei Jiao and his family broke down and wanted to run away from home. Before leaving, he came to the host and asked the host if he would like to travel with him. The host was very hesitant. Lang Lang Tianya is not that easy. She is a girl, her mind is more delicate and more realistic, but she looks at Fei Jiao's soul loss, and asks if she doesn't love him anymore, because he immediately abandoned him if you do and have money. Under the question of Fei Jiao, although the host hesitated, he finally left home with Fei Jiao in order to prove his true love. When she left, she did not forget to take all of her homework, thinking that her homework had dropped a lot, and she could learn well during this time. Fei Jiao was empty-handed and he took nothing. Not even money. The so-called first departure from home was to go to a friend's house that Fei Jiao knew in another city. But you see aunt always stay at someone's house, so Fei Jiao went out to open a hotel after staying with a friend for a few days. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 571. In the beginning, Fei Jiao borrowed money with friends to live, but he stayed in the hotel all day and knew that he was addicted to games. This kind of life is not a picture of the lingering horizon in the host's imagination. She was very embarrassed and always felt uneasy. She actually wanted to go home several times, but every time she said this, Fei Jiao interrupted her irritably or asked her if he was out of money. Abandon him and say that she is as hypocritical as the women outside. The host is pregnant, of course, can't give birth. After all, it is so small and has no money. Fei Jiao borrowed all his friends. Most of the money was spent on food, lodging, and games. The host can't delay the money for the pregnancy. He temporarily borrowed it from a friend. For this reason, he complained impatiently that the host was too troublesome. Why not take medicine to take measures? In order to save money, the host did not have a narcotic flow. She was lying on the operating bed and felt that she had not suffered as much in her life. However, it is more sinful after the pregnancy. The doctor ordered a confinement child to have no life, but Fei Jiao was just when she was full of flesh and blood, and she did not care about her pleading. The host had a major bleeding episode once, but she had no money to go to the hospital to see it, and could no longer bear the pain. So later, when the host saw that Fei Jiao was going to do that with her, he was afraid. Fei Jiao saw that the host was no different from the wood. He gradually felt depressed about the host. The host's beauty once became a muse in his eyes. He even teased the host about being conservative and boring in front of friends. Like an old nun. The host became like this, and she was afraid to go home. She did not dare to face her parents, her teachers, and classmates, and she did not dare to face everyone she knew. How terrified she used to be in the eyes of everyone, how frightened she is now. The only thing she had left was Fei Jiao, so even though Fei Jiao was becoming increasingly impatient with her and getting more and more irritable to her, she was holding on to the only remaining lover. She gave up everything for him, she lost so much for him, she couldn't lose him anymore. It was also because of this idea that even if Fei Jiao would even hit her and scold her later, she was silent and never left. The host committed suicide. Fei Jiao had no money outside, so he bowed to the family and was going home. He was so young that his family would definitely not accept the host together. Fei Jiao let the host go home and said he will go abroad by himself, and there will be no connection between the two. When he said these words, he didn't even want to look at her at once. He threw her a pile of money and turned away. Where the host had a face to go home, she cut her wrist and committed suicide. This life is short. When he didn't meet Fei Jiao, the host's life was simple and beautiful. But after meeting Fei Jiao, the host experienced both the joy of heaven and the torment in hell. She took the wrong step at an ignorant age, and there was no way to turn back. She hoped she would do it again. Once again, she hopes that the person who is suffering better than death is not her, but Fei Jiao. She hopes that she will become a good boy in the eyes of her parents and become a good student that teachers and classmates like. But can she change back? The host was hesitant, so she didn't even dare to say her last wish, just to be able to revenge Fei Jiao. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 572. This is really a silly little girl. At this point, the host and Fei Jiao left home to stay in the hotel. Not only that, the host has also had a fetus, because Fei Jiao always asks for a shadow that causes pain to the host after the fetus, so the host has no enthusiasm for this matter, so Fei Jiao always ridicules the host and the dead. Today, the song is so charming and unusual, and Fei Jiao has a rare body and mind, so afterwards, instead of worrying about eating and filling his stomach, he held the song in his arms and rubbed it. Yan Ji was not so patient with him. Although the little wolf dog is like a wolf, but the technology is not very good. It is no surprise that the little girl doesn't like it by brute force. If this adult woman is like a wolf like a tiger, it must be a brave dog like this. The host is so small and traumatized, what needs to be caressed, not this venting-like impact. Fei Jiao was about to hug her, but she pushed her away and went into the bathroom to take a bath. Fei Jiao's family is rich and powerful. Even if she runs away from home, she lives in a high-end hotel, not only a shower, but also a bathtub. The words are soaked in the bathtub. The heat is rising, and her lips are slightly tilted. With a smile on his face, his eyes closed with his head closed on the edge, and he looked really comfortable. Fei Jiao pushed open the door and wanted Yanj to go out and buy it earlier, but he saw the gorgeousness of the buds on Yanj, and he walked in a little, and wanted to go in the bathtub with Song of Songs again. This kind of happiness is also there before. But every time he was full of interest, and the woman in his arms was as rigid as wood. But today, it's different. The woman soaking in the water today is like a water snake wrapped around him, both demon and charming, pure and swaying. Such a combination made him even feel that he had fallen into the mire of her, and had no power to extricate himself, but was passively absorbed by her, over and over again. In this small bathroom, he and she came again 3 times. He held the soft body in his arms and suddenly thought, would it be more pleasant if he did this kind of thing by his own swimming pool? He was about to reach out and touch her hair afterwards, but she got up, pulled a bath towel, tied it obliquely, and walked towards the door. Her legs were white and slender, and the bath towel was able to cover her hips, and her waist was slightly twisted between walks, and she was in a swaying posture, which made him look a little crazy. Yan Ji came to the door, holding the bathroom door with one hand, then turned his head slightly, and looked at him. I'm hungry, go out and buy some breakfast. This tone is completely command. But her voice was tender and soft, and she wanted to be sweet, and made him want to eat her into her mouth. So she completely ignored her imperative tone and nodded her head, saying okay. He didn't have to wear much, a pair of big pants and short sleeves, and he went downstairs in slippers. When Song went out, Yanj pulled his clothes. She leaned on the door and looked up at him slightly. Several battles in the morning made her face red, just like a moisturized rose, charming and gorgeous. When she looked up at him slightly, Ying Hong's lips were slightly open, and her small face was big and fleshy. Yes, he couldn't help it, reached out and squeezed, joking with a smile, be careful of people coming in the corridor. She hung up a bath towel, covering half of the top, half of the bottom, and half of the floor. Although he said that, his hand slid down her face along her face. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Weipang. Chapter 573. Yang held his hand, hooked his neck with his other hand, and kissed his lips. Two people have been in the hotel for so long, although often, but when they kiss, but less and less, he suddenly found that her mouth was so sweet, water stains are not enough, lips and teeth intertwined, it took a long time before she reached out and pushed him, pushing him away, go. He looked at the lips that were more and more reddish by his kisses, and wanted to make a laugh, but his throat rolled, he worshipped her and turned away. This fairy, he must have to get her a meal when he returns. In the beginning, two people delivered meals from the hotel, but the meals in the hotel were so expensive, and recently they have no money, so they can only go to the alley next to the hotel to buy breakfast. This kind of thing is usually done by the host. Fei Jie went out for the first time, and the sun shone on him. He reached out and covered it, and then suddenly remembered that he seemed to have not gone out for a long time. The heavy curtains of the hotel were often pulled. I have never seen such a glare of sunlight. It was also stabbed by the sun that he later realized that Su Mian is a little different today. He held his cell phone and thought of going home soon, he had a rare nostalgia for Su Mian. So this time he bought extra rich. But returned to the hotel room, but did not see the figure of Su Mian. She left a note on the table where he often played games. Jia Yu. I looked at your mobile chat record yesterday and I know that you will soon leave me home and reunite with your loved ones and study abroad. I wish you a smooth journey abroad and a bright future. Rather than being left behind by you, I feel that I should probably leave on my own initiative. You are the first person I love and the first man in my body. I used to regard you as the love of my life, but I thought that my life was a joke. Coming out with you this time, my body and mind are painful. I never thought that loving someone is not love but a deep-seated pain. I hope that in the future you will walk on your Yangguan road and I will walk on my single wooden bridge. You and I will never see each other again. Even if we meet each other, we hope to be strangers. Her words are beautiful, fresh, and elegant, just like her people. Fei Jiao stared twice to see what she meant. When did he say he was going to leave her? Yes, yesterday, she did tell her friends on WeChat about the things he left her after returning home, but he was just joking about those words. She dared to peek at his mobile phone, and since she did question he, how can you take the joke seriously? Fei Jiao was so angry that the sack of breakfast in his hand immediately hit the ground, and he took out his cell phone to call her. The phone was in a down state, and I remembered that since she came out, she hadn't renewed the phone after it stopped. He found out her WeChat and sent it over before realizing that she had pulled him black. All her chat software took him out. She even logged out of her account in the game. She didn't have a dime on her body, and her cell phone was down again. Where can she go? Fei Jiao was trembling with anger and wanted to sleep with her head covered. She was so capricious that she didn't bother to care where she went. Anyway, she couldn't walk outside, she would definitely come back. After all, she said a long time ago that she threw everyone away, leaving only him. She would definitely come back to find him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Weipang. Chapter 574. However, there was a trace of sorrow in his heart, so after a brief indignation, he turned his head and walked towards the door. I asked the front desk and learned that she was really out of the hotel, but the person at the front desk didn't know which direction she was going. To go home, she must take a plane, but she has no money, and it is impossible to even take a taxi. Gradually impatient, he gritted his teeth and returned to the hotel. Maybe she had returned to the hotel long ago, waiting for him in the room. But the room was empty, without her at all. The phone rang and a friend asked him to play a game. He was sitting in front of the computer, and he quickly played darkly, "Miss me a bottle of Coke." The words came out randomly, but no one responded. He waited for a long time, as if he had responded, slowly turned his head and looked around. There was no her figure in the room, not even the bathroom. He stared at the room, suddenly feeling extremely empty and dark. He looked at the time. It was already over 7 in the evening. She hadn't returned yet. When will she be back? Maybe it was sitting downstairs in the lobby, waiting for him to go downstairs to find it. Thinking about it that way, he got up and walked out. His teammates were thrown away by him, and one crying dad called his mother and called him. They were all friends who played together, and he didn't hide it, so he talked about Su Mianmian's departure. Of course, everyone is standing in line with Fei Jiao, comforting him one by one. "Anyway, you are too tired of her, and it is not good for her to leave. Yeah, it's good to have a little self-knowledge. She saves you from driving her away. Such a boring woman can't bear it now. In other words, I used to think she was a fairy. Since Jiao played with her, how do you think she is full of obscurity? She just walked right away, and Jiao will have to turn over in the future. Actually, I'm interested in experiencing her dead style, ha 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 ha." Fei Jiao opened her mouth and scolded, "Go to your mother." He no longer chats with these people in the management group. In fact, he originally wanted to give Su Mianmian some money. No matter what, this woman was considered to have followed him, and he was not so ruthless. But she just left. She gave her nothing and said nothing. She would never see him again, and she even wanted to see her. This woman, usually arguing with him, knelt down every minute and begged him not to leave her, saying that she liked him very much. But when he turned his face, he was ruthless. He is so, very angry. After walking downstairs for a lap, she was still missing. He even searched the night market outside the hotel, but she was still missing. His teammates urged him to play the game, but he was not interested. He sat in the hotel lobby and smoked one after another. Yan Ji really didn't have a dime. Fortunately, WeChat can also transfer money. She contacted Su Mianmian's parents in WeChat. As soon as her daughter walked for 3 months, nothing was said except for reporting safety. Su Mianmian's parents were dying. When they heard that her daughter was in a neighboring city, she wanted to buy some train tickets with them to go home. They were afraid that her daughter would take the money and go to another place. They could not wait for a minute and a second, called relatives, drove for more than 3 hours, and connected to the daughter waiting there at the railway station in the neighboring city. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Weipang. Chapter 575. Seeing that her daughter was almost a bone, her face was not full of vigor and anger, and Su's mother could not help crying. Yan Ji also shed a few tears. The host's subconscious mind is haunting. In fact, the host always feels that he has no face to go home to see his parents, but the parents in the world can really blame his daughter. No matter what the matter is, as long as the mistake is corrected, the parents will be very happy and pleased, but the host is too young to understand, so it was finally on the road to death. The host's body is very poor now, and Yan Ji was afraid of Su's mother being sad, so she concealed Su's own abortion and abortion. She only went back to school after returning home, and found some time to go to the hospital to get some Chinese medicine to drink. Su's mother asked, she just said that she didn't sleep well, and prescribed some Chinese medicine in the hospital. Su Mushin was afraid that Yanj would be the same as before. As long as she said a few words, she would scream and cry and ran away from home. So as long as Yanj was good, she said everything carefully, although she doubted the medicine of Yang Roll, but did not dare to ask clearly. But when Yan Ji could not see, took the medicine to the Chinese medicine store to identify what medicine. Knowing that the Chinese medicine is really recuperating the body and soothe the nerves, she was relieved, so she tried her best to help her recuperate in her diet. Running away from home for such a long time, the first half of the third year has been swaying, and the second half of the year has just started school. Su Mu was afraid that Yanj could not keep up with her studies. She wanted to keep her in grade for another year and even wanted to change her school. I was afraid that my daughter would be stimulated again by her classmates, so she could start again with a new environment. The host learns well. The schools they are in are all ranked in the city. Of course, Yanj will not transfer. She also did not intend to repeat the grade, soothing Su mother, so that Su mother do not worry, she will study hard. This made Su's mother flattered, and she couldn't turn around for a long time. When she slept at night, she and her father carefully discussed the change of words and songs. She didn't know what her daughter had experienced outside and didn't dare to ask. She was afraid of stimulating her daughter again. Such a change in her daughter would not only make her feel at ease, but would make her heart very sad. She always felt that her daughter had suffered a lot outside. I didn't dare to worry too much about my daughter's rebellious thoughts. Su's mother tried her best to sing the song on diet and cold and warmth. I noticed that Su's mother and Su's father were very careful when facing himself, and Yan Ji's heart was a little uncomfortable. This emotion has a lot to do with the soul source of the host. So when Su mother gave her another fruit into the room, she motioned for Su mother to sit on the bed near her desk. Mom, don't worry about me, the previous thing was I was wrong, I will be fine during this time. Focus on your studies and strive for a good school, and you and your dad will never be disappointed again. Mother Su said quickly, oh, that's good, that's good, you don't have to study so late, or when you growing up, it's not good for you to go to bed at midnight every day, not good for exams. It's okay, parents can understand you, and we can retake the test, which is your own body, don't burn it out. It was obvious that she did not listen to the words. The person who always shouted that the wolf is here, even if Yan Ji is very sincere this time, may not dare to be too relieved. She and Su's father already had the worst plan. Her daughter could not pass the grade test once. They only hoped that her daughter could slowly turn her mind around. Don't be as rebellious as before, and thank God. But